Those. What now? Blessing. Blessings to you. Well, I'm on. I didn't know I was on. Carrying on my conversations here at the Biblical Lifestyle Center. Blessings to you and welcome. Shabbat Shalom. A beautiful Sabbath. O Holy One, open my lips that my mouth may shine forth with your radiance today. May all of us walk in the wisdom and the revelation streams of heaven today. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining us, those who are here in the building. Thank you for those who will tune in later and catch this as a recorded version off of YouTube or off of Facebook Live. We welcome you. Coming from wherever you are, from Africa, from Australia, from New Zealand, Canada, Mexico, Israel, England, wherever you may tune in from, all parts of the United States. We bless you. Drop us a note, let us know you were here and how we can pray for you or what comments you might have about our discussion. I want to address the times and the seasons today, where we are in this time and seasons. I want to address the vision that the Holy One is laying out, or actually Moshe is being used. Moses, as most people know him, is being being used to lay out for us. In Proverbs 29:18, most of us have heard this verse, or some of us have memorized it. It's sort of an important verse to sort of center our whole perspective of what our life is all about. And in Proverbs 29:18, it's written, "Where there is no vision, the people perish." It doesn't end there. That's what most of us know, but it doesn't end there. It goes on to say, "But he who treasures, cherishes, keeps, guards, and protects the Torah, happy is he. Blessed is he, happy is he." And so this idea of without a vision, without the vision of the creator of the universe, the people will wind themselves down, self-destruct, cultures will die, societies will crumble, nations will collapse. But with the vision that is spelled out in the Torah, in his instruction manual for life on planet Earth, there is joy and there is strength and there is shalom and there is cross-generational growth and maturity. A building process is in place. So I wanted to start with that today. Tell you that this name of this parsha is Re'eh, which should mean something to you. Re'eh would be, in English, it's usually translated as behold. It's an imperative. It's kind of gets your attention. The idea of Moses in this verse is to say, we're about to have a major paradigm shift. I'm about to give you the vision. I'm about to release over you the vision. Without the vision, the people perish. The nations crumble. The societies fall into disrepair. Without the vision. So I'm about to give you the vision. Behold. If you can imagine, if you have a plan to go into and take possession of a large tract of land, a huge piece of land, the huge farm, a huge ranch. And it's too big for you to look at just in one spot, so you need to get up in a helicopter. And so the previous owner of the helicopter takes you up in his the land, takes you up in his helicopter. And he begins to show you things from the helicopter view, from the larger, wider view, looking down upon this huge tract of land, this great farm, there's many acres or hectare or whatever it may be that you use. So he begins to show you this, and he shows you where a pathway is, as you can see it from above, and he shows you that pathway is about to cross a number of other pathways. And there are going to be roads that diverge off to the left and roads that diverge off to the right. He's going to show you from above where each of those pathways winds up. Or whether they just die out and just they don't exist anymore. He's going to give you this helicopter view. And you're supposed to, by virtue of listening to him, walking through this with him, listening and seeing what he sees, what he tells you to see, you're supposed to be able to predict how you're going to interact with that land, how you're going to interact with that farm, how you're going to make your life and this area you've been given stewardship over productive. Knowing what to avoid, what roads to go down, what pathways are good pathways, and what pathways will lead you to jungles, to areas where to drought areas, or to areas of flood-prone areas. It'll take you to places you don't want to go. Well, if you can picture that, that's what Moshe is doing. Actually, he's beginning a series of 5 parshas. We will continue on this same re'eh, behold, theme all the way through Parsha Nitzavim, and he will close it with a similar injunction, re'eh, behold. This time, he's going to give us behold at the beginning, and then he's going to come to the end of this helicopter road. After we've looked at all the roads we could possibly go down and all the dangerous areas we could have gotten into, he's going to say, now, behold. And he said, now, this is for your life. This is how you will live and have your children live and your children's children live, and we'll see that in Parsha Nitzavim down in chapter 30 of the book of Deuteronomy. So here we are in chapter 11 to start with. We're talking about 19 chapters, 19 to 20 chapters basically, in which he is going to unveil the vision. Without a vision, without the vision, the people perish, the nations crumble, societies dissolve. Without the vision. So this is the vision. This is important. And he's going to lay out at first the most important things he wants you to see that will change your perspective and change your motivational factors, change your inspiration levels, and begin to get you actively engaged. And then he's going to start building infrastructure of what you can envision happening, what should happen in this farm he's selling you, giving you, entrusting to you as a steward. What you're supposed to build there, how you're supposed to make it work, how you're supposed to make it productive, how you're supposed to make it the best it can possibly be, a city set on a hill, a shining example for the rest of the world. That's what we're in this for. So Parsha number 47 of the whole group, we're getting closer to the end. 47 is re'eh, and it means behold, observe, discern, pay attention. And in this particular situation, we'll be dealing with chapters 11, verse 26, through I think it's 16, verse 11 of Deuteronomy. I call it the parsha of shifting perspectives and recognizing diverging pathways. Shifting perspectives, it's all about vision, and then recognizing diverging pathways. The world talks a lot about diversity. It's been a buzzword that was passed through the focus groups, and it seemed to be popular with people, so therefore sociologists and politicians and those kind of folks use this term a lot. It's really a meaningless term because it's not a Torah term. It's not a base term. What is important is divergence. Divergence is the idea of the Torah that we as a holy people, the people of the kingdom, the people of the Abrahamic calling, we are to diverge from the rest of the peoples of this earth. We are to model and exemplify the glorious heavenly things of our King, and therefore our lifestyle should greatly diverge at every crossroads between the way the world looks at things, the way the world interacts with things, the way the world talks about things, the vocabulary they use, the ideas they project, the values they follow, the priorities they take on. We should diverge from them at every single level. We are not like them. We are called, because of our connection with the heavenly, with the Holy One, we are called to be significantly divergent. Well, this is the path. He's going to show us the vision of where we diverge, where we must learn to diverge. It will not always be comfortable. Most of the time, our flesh, our emotions, and our pseudo-intellect, the three cords of this strand that pulls us into this world and holds us in this world. Our flesh, our drives, our attitudes, our opinions, our drives, our urges, our appetites, our likes and dislikes, our flesh. That pulls us into the vortex of societies collapsing, nations falling. That plugs us into no vision other than the plan of the world. And then the other thing is the emotions. Our emotions are designed to be like hydraulic fluid in a heavy equipment. Hydraulic fluid is supposed to empower and allow things to function well. But what you don't want to have in a heavy equipment is a hydraulic hose burst. What you don't want to have is a leak of hydraulic fluid, because at that place, first of all, you're scalding, you're burning whoever it is it touches. And second of all, you're losing all the power that was inherent in the machine, because that's the way in which it uses power. So emotions are designed to be used by us, not to control us. not to be spewed out like hydraulic fluid on other people. We are called to use our emotions as warning signs, as indicators, as empowerments to focus us in the mission, in the plan, and to the extent we allow them to be utilized for any other purpose, we have no vision. We are not following the vision, and therefore the society around us and our own lives and our own families begin to crumble. Our emotions take control. So we have the flesh and its appetites and its urges and desires, the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, stuff that you saw. It looks good to eat. It would make me wise, all those things. And then we have the third, which is the pseudo-intellect. The pseudo-intellect basically is that part which says, I want to know stuff absent and external from my Creator, what He wants me to know. I want to know things I think that I could learn on my own through sources other than Him. That's your pseudo-intellect. And the world is always playing to your pseudo-intellect. The sciences of this world, we call them science. Science is actually designed to help us know how things work, not to run our world. Medicine is designed to heal hurting people, sick people, not to control your public policy. Do you understand how the pseudo-intellect comes in and takes control and takes you away and destroys the vision of the greater thing? Those are just some of the examples. So these three things are involved. I want to tell you that our readings in the Torah are Deuteronomy 11:26 through 17, excuse me. And then in the Haftarah, the portion from the prophets we read along, this is the third week of consolation, the third week of showing the end game. Well, this whole parsha is part of the end game. It is one of these parshas that tells us what the vision of the Holy One for His creation looks like and how we are to play an important role in that. So this is part of the end game. Isaiah 54:11 through 55:1 will give us some amazing insight in that. 1 John 4:1 through 6 is our readings from the Brit Hadashah, and the Amidah portion, or the Shemona Ezrah paragraph that we focus on this week, is the Da'at, which is usually translated as knowledge. It is the Hebrew phrase that intimate relational understanding of how things work by relating to our Creator and what He reveals to us about how to make it work better and be more productive. So, from the moment that we read the word re'eh, behold, discern, observe, when we hear our Master, the voice of the Holy One saying, I'm about to reveal the vision, something should begin to happen inside of us. There should be this excitement, this inspiration, this enthusiasm begin to arise. We might not be able to quantify it or describe what it means, but this is going to turn our whole attention toward the upcoming High Holy Days. It's going to be a wake-up call, as it were. It's like the sound of the shofar that begins the month of Elul. Beginning with a couple days from now, we're going to have a new moon. Rosh Chodesh. And at that time, we'll blow the shofar, and then we'll begin the sixth month of the biblical year. And that 6th month of the biblical year is called Elul, and it is the season when the king is in the field. And we want to sound the shofar. We want to hear the word re'eh, behold, that the king is in the field, and that we are preparing for this great encounter, this great visitation, for being accountable and responsible to Him. You want to hear those words, well done, good and faithful servant? Well, we need to practice this every year. And so that's what the 6th month is about, practicing to have a good report to give to our King and have Him inspect us and find us well. Now, that means that certain things should beat a hasty retreat. Our fleshly appetites, urges should take a backseat. Our emotions that have run rampant and out of control, our anger, our fear, our worry, our anxiety, our disappointment, our sadness, our depression, any of those emotions, our envy, our greed, all those things should be said, that's not, the time for that is not now. That needs to be put aside. We have other priorities we must focus on rather than these emotional things. And then all the things of the pseudo-intellect. All the things we've been listening to, hearing, thinking about, spewing about, expressing our opinions about, those things in this season need to be put way back on the back burner, if not forgotten altogether. Instead, we should be focused on what the Holy One wants to do in the world in our lifetime. while we are on duty, on our watch. What is his vision for the world on our watch? What is his vision for our cities, our country, our region, our neighborhood, our house, our lives, while we have breath, while we have life, while we are being sustained from on high by his daily bread, by his gifts? What is our purpose? That should be the center of our attention. And every voice that whispers to you something else, and every thought of your own flesh or your own pseudo-intellect that pops up to try to tell you somewhere else needs to be put down, needs to be stopped. We need to take captive every such thought, every such mindset, every such worldview, and begin to focus on those things. Now, the vision that the Holy One wishes to have Moshe lay out for us, this 5 parsha, 5 chapter, 19 to 20 chapters of vision that he wants to lay out, is of what I call, for lack of a better term, the kingdom of heaven-scented society. A society that has a scent of the kingdom of heaven in it. Now, I would love to tell you that we're all going to build the kingdom of heaven, and we're going to bring it to earth, on earth as it is in heaven. Your will be done, your kingdom come. I'm not so naive anymore as to believe that we can make that happen, even at our best. But here's what I do believe, and what I know, what I have experienced. To the extent we catch the vision and let the energy and the empowerment of his vision flow in and through us, we can bring a scent, S-C-E-N-T, a fragrance of the kingdom of heaven into every facet of our lives. We can bring it into our family. We can bring it into our households and our neighborhoods. We can bring it into our businesses and our marketplaces. We can bring it into our cities. We can bring it into our society. We can bring it into our culture. And so what is going to need to happen is we need to get a vision. Not to have this society, this culture, this family thing go on the way it's gone on so far, but to get a vision that how he wants to heal it, how he wants to cure it, how he wants to bring little bit by little. He does it meod, little bit by little bit, lest we get overwhelmed with what's going on. So what's the little bit? What's today's meod? What's this week's meod that we need to touch, that we need to bring the kingdom of heaven's scent into? Well, Moshe is going to begin this vision, this download, by saying, behold, and then saying, behold, I lay out before you 2 pathways. There, I told you, get the helicopter, look up, there's the pathway. This one goes this one, this one goes that way. 2 pathways. Now, Yeshua is going to pick up on this whole theme in the Sermon on the Mount. He's going to tell you to enter by the straight gate and go on the narrow road, because narrow is the way that leads to life, but broad is the way that leads to destruction. He's going to pick up on this whole theme that Moshe is laying out for us on these 2 pathways. And he's going to teach us many things about that. We're going to see his whole mission to tell people how to learn how to walk on the narrow path and avoid and walk away from the wide path that leads to destruction. That's Moshe's job. That's what he's doing now. 2 pathways. Do you have a vision that at every moment of your life you could possibly choose one of 2 pathways? It may look like there are many, but there are really just 2 pathways. They are diverging right before you at all times. First, there is a brilliantly lit, beautiful, heaven-inspired pathway that is the way of his Torah. That is the way he instructs us life should be on earth. The things that he says, this is the way you should live on this earth. This is the bridegroom's pathway, as I call it, and this is the way in which he is designed. This is the narrow path, though. It's well lit, but it's very, very narrow. Because, you see, any little step can get you off of that path. And there are many ways. But this is the first path he wants to show you. And the second path is then this broad path, and it's a dark path. Matter of fact, it's not even well defined. You can't, all you know is you feel like you want to go there. You feel like other people are there, so you should go there as well. You feel the pull, the draw. The siren's song of society is calling you down this broad pathway, but it leads to destruction. So he's going to show you these two images, this image of these two roads. Now, he is going to show us that one of those roads is going to lead us to life, health, and peace, and a kingdom of heaven-centered society upon the earth. But the other road is going to lead us into all sorts of disasters, and we will not be long in the land in which he gives to us. From the Torah this week, he's going to say a few things that I'm going to just summarize real quickly. One of the important things he's going to say, and we'll get to the details in a moment, but sort of a center or a hinge point of what he's going to say in the Torah this week comes from Deuteronomy 14, verse 1, and the first subpart of that. Without understanding this, we will not understand the rest of this parsha or how we could possibly feel like it's a good idea. And the first thing he says that in this area is, you are the children of the Holy One, your God. This is radical. Now, it doesn't seem radical to us in 21st century after years and years of religion. But at the time, and to most people in the world who do not have any of that background, to say that the Holy One, the creator of the universe, is our Father, and we are his children? Oh my. It totally changes our perspective on everything. And so this is the center hinge point of Parsha Re'eh and the entire come up here and see what I see discourse that he is about to unload. That the Holy One, our God, is our Father and we are his children. Let that soak in on you. He is not some aloof creator God out there, some supernatural, impersonal force out there who controls the universe and whimsically does what he wants to do, who really doesn't care much about you or about anything on this earth because it's all about him. He's this egomaniac. No, he is like to you a father, and you are to him like a child. Now, Steve Belk, one of our beloved friends here at the fellowship, this week he became a grandfather, and we bless him in that endeavor. 2 or 3 days before his son's wife gave birth, before Bethany gave birth to a beautiful child, unseen child, his son Mason wrote a song to that child as yet unseen. I recommend, if you go on Facebook, I recommend you go on my Facebook because I wasn't going to let that thing sit, and I put a reference and a point. It's on YouTube. He put it on YouTube. He has a YouTube channel, so I recommend you look at it. It's called No Predictions. This is before the child was born, right before the child was born, basically. No predictions. And it sort of expresses the heart of a father toward his child. The level at which it's not just love, it's hope, it's expectation, it's joy. It's a sense of connection that cannot be broken. It's a sense of wanting the well-being of that child. Do you now know who he is? Do you now understand why this plan matters so much? This is not the plan of some impersonal dictator. This is the plan of someone who saw you in your womb, in the mother's womb, knit you together there, and feels a part of your life, not a critical, important part of your life, and sees you as a critical, important part of his world. This is who you are. So the first aspect of the vision that we want to make sure you get is this vision of him as your father and you as his child. Now, I'll talk more, hopefully, about that, and we can meditate and ruminate a little bit about what that means, what the implications of that are, specifically in your life, and the way in which you need to understand he feels about you, he looks at you, he thinks of you, and how perhaps if you could get this vision, you might begin to think about him. And you might begin to see that he's the one who wishes only your best, wants only your good, desires only to see you fulfill all the potential that he put in you. And then that's why he gave you the instructions he gave you. That's why he wants to download the vision that he gives to you. Not because he wants you to be his servant, to slave under his authority. Because he wants to build this great kingdom of heaven centered society for you and your children and your children's children to live in forever. Well, that's the first of the kind of central hinge point verses. I would say that the next thing in that verse is, you are the children of the Holy One your God, therefore. And I will leave an ellipse and won't tell you what the therefore is yet. I'll leave that to talk about later, and maybe you to read for yourself. If he is your father, and if you are his beloved, cherished, delighted in child, then what? Therefore what? What would be the appropriate response? What would be our appropriate lifestyle response to that? Now, the next thing that I would point to is also in Deuteronomy 14, kind of a hinge point. And later on in that chapter, he says, for you are, and he uses this beautiful Hebrew phrase, Am Kadosh. You are a people set apart. You are a nation holy to the Holy One your God. You're not just holy in theory. You're holy to someone. Who is this? Your Father. You are so regarded as different and special. You are a people, Am Kadosh, set apart to the Holy One your God. And the Holy One has chosen you to be a people for himself, a special treasure above all the peoples who are on the face of the earth. This is the key hinge point of the vision. We do things differently. We diverge for a reason. Because of he who calls us, because of he who nurtures us, because of he who loves us, because of he who is with us, because of he who has done all things for us, who has set our table for us, and has filled us with meaning and purpose and direction in life. That is why we do these things. Now let's think about what we do. Well, let's go and maybe read a little bit from the parsha. We're going to stand in a few seconds. I will ask you to go ahead and stand if you would. And before I just jump off into this reading, this is our Father's love letter to us. So his precious words of life. So I always start with this blessing from Psalm 119. I encourage you to join me if you would like. Certain excerpts from Psalm 119 that help me to focus my attention on what the Torah's beauty is. Open our eyes, O Holy One our God, that we may see wondrous things in your Torah. For we are but strangers in the earth. Do not hide your commandments from us. Our souls cry out for your judgments at all times. How can a young man keep his way pure? By living according to your word. Amen. From Deuteronomy 11, verse 26. Re'eh. Behold, observe. I set before you today a blessing and a curse. The blessing, if you shema the mitzvot, the commandments of the Holy One your God, that I enjoin you today. And the curse, if you do not shema the mitzvot of the Holy One your God, but you turn away from the way in which I instruct you today, and you go after gods that you have not known. Now it will come to pass, when the Holy One your God has brought you into the land that you go to possess, that you are to put the blessing on Mount Gerizim and the curse on Mount Ebal. Are they not on the other side of the Jordan, toward the setting sun, in the land of the Canaani? who dwell opposite the Gilgal, beside the terebinth trees of Moreh. For you will cross over the Jordan, and you will go in to possess the land that the Holy One your God has given you. And you will possess it and dwell in it. And you are to be careful. You are to shamar, treasure, and cherish, and guard, to observe, to do, to make, to cause to come to being, to build all the statutes and all the judgments that I set before you today. These are the statutes and the judgments that you should be careful to observe in the land which the Holy One your God, your fathers, is giving you to possess all the days that you shall live upon the earth. You are to utterly destroy, to scatter, to uproot all the places where the nations you are dispossessing serve their gods. On the high mountains, on the hills, and under every green tree. And you are to tear down, to uproot their altars. You're to break their sacred pillars. You are to burn their wooden images with fire. And you are to cut down the carved images of their gods and destroy their names from that place. You are not to worship, to serve the Holy One, your God, in that way. Amen. You may be seated. Divergence. Now, the first part of this great vision that the Holy One is unveiling to us was that there are two pathways. And these pathways are not just interesting things to go down. They have a substance and an effect to them. And the pathways that you can choose are blessing on the one hand. That's the narrow road that leads to life. That's the way of the Torah. That's the way of the instructions, the bridegroom's pathway. That's blessing. And out of that comes this whole bracha concept in Hebrew, which is to be filled to the maximum with your potential and to bring out your abilities, to set you free of restrictions and limitations. That's in this first pathway. That's what you carry with you when you walk that pathway. That's what you release when you walk that pathway. And your destination is Gerizim, the place of blessing, the place of fruitfulness. Now, there are two mountains side by side, sort of small mountains, side by side. Look past Jericho, past that, and you see in the valley down there where Shechem, the city of Shechem, is. And the base of those mountains is Shechem, but rising up from one side is Mount Ebal, and rising up from the other side is Mount Gerizim. He's going to use the physical geography of the land of Israel to teach you these lessons. You will go either to Gerizim or you will go to Ebal. The road, the pathways will diverge when you get there. Mount Ebal is very noticeable. It's bald. It doesn't sustain life. And Gerizim, on the other hand, is teeming with life. Side-by-side mountains, right with one valley. This mountain, this hill, is just green. It's layers and layers of green, orchards and vineyards, all sorts of things growing on it everywhere. It's life. And so we have using this illustration from the land of Israel, the geographical land of Israel. It says your life will go either to Gerizim or it will go to Ebal, depending on which road you take. Depending on which of these pathways you go. If you want to go to the place of fruitfulness, the place where life flourishes and teems and grows and you are nurtured and you are a blessing to other people and you pronounce blessings, go down the road of the pathway of the bridegroom king. But if you're content going to the place of baldness, going to the place of barrenness, going to the place where nothing will grow, where nothing sustains, where nothing lasts, where everything is into destruction, then take that road. Take that broad road. It's your choice. You must make that choice. That's the first aspect of the vision. There are two roads, and it is our job to choose. And the choice is based upon this. Is this what the Holy One, our God, has said? Or is this what the world or my flesh or my emotions or my pseudo-intellect are telling me is the right way to go? Second part of the vision is what we read last part. Once we enter the land, once we begin to take authority over what He's giving to us, our spheres of influence that He is assigning to us, there's going to need to be a demolition, for those of you who don't watch Chip and Joanna Gaines, and the Fixer-Upper shows. Demo day. It's just a day, just demo day. This is not about demolition. This is about construction, but demolition must take place before construction. There are certain things that are going to be totally inconsistent with the kingdom of heaven-centered society we're to build. With the fruitfulness of Mount Gerizim, with the blessings of Mount Gerizim, there are certain things that are so toxic, so damaging, so dangerous, so destructive that we must root them out, disconnect them from the land, dispose of them, and never go back and let them be built again. In our land, in our sphere of influence. What happens in other spheres of influence is other people's business. But in our sphere of influence, on our watch, under our household, under our hegemony, then we must make sure these things do not take root. These things do not come back because these things are too toxic to allow the blessing, the Gerizim, the life force, the fullness of maturity and potential are reached. And so he's going to talk about what those things are. We read it. I'm going to get more detail with you in a moment. Let's go ahead and go back to the first, though, before I talk about what's got to be torn up. Behold indicates that we have the choice as to what we will see and what we will not. First of all, we need a divine empowerment. But once we are divinely empowered to see what he wants us to see, we have to choose if we will look at it or not. Do we have a vision? Do we have the eyes to see what he wants to do? And what is going to take for that to happen in us, in our families, in our households, in our world, and around us? Do we have a vision for that? Do we have a lens? What lens are we looking for? As we look to the future, what lens are we using? You see, when we look at any person, any place, any situation, any challenge, we don't see it as it is, no matter how much we think we do. If you look at a video that was played on the news, you only see what the camera that was taking it and the person who edited it puts on there before you. Never get swayed by stuff you see like that. Now, it's always a bigger story. That you never see what really happened. You only see what they want you to see, or what your eyes and your inclinations and your predispositions and your out-of-control emotions and your pseudo-intellect tells you want to see. This is scary because we all live under the specter of this false vision, under projected vision, and under predispositions to particular visions. So before we get too deep in this, he wants to know, what lenses are you looking life through? What lenses are you looking at your present, your past, your future through? Are you looking through lenses of victimization? Are you looking through lenses of historical inequalities? Are you looking through vision of greed or malice? What are you looking through? What are you angry about? And how is that affecting your vision? What are you who hurt you? How do you feel like you've been hurt or misused or mistreated? And how is that affecting your vision? What do you think you're entitled to? What do you think you deserve? What do you think people should do for you? And how is that affecting your vision of what you see? These lenses are critical. The inconvenient truth is that fallen human beings acting in the flesh never see people or things or places or the times in which we live as they really are. We only see them as our chosen sets of interpretive lenses permit us, perhaps even demand us to see them. So, what is our vision? What is our lens? What will be our choice of lens? And what is our goal? What is our plan? What is our desire? We are sons and daughters of Abraham. Sometimes we forget this. We forget that we're connected to the Abrahamic call and the Abrahamic blessing and the Abrahamic purpose. The Abrahamic purpose is to be a blessing to all the peoples and all the families of the house on the face of the earth. The Abrahamic blessing is to teach our families and our children after us the ways of the Holy One, to distinguish and do what is right and just. Teach these things to our families, our children. The Abrahamic vision is to see a city not built with human hands, and a great society that can, as John describes it, coming down from heaven, the New Jerusalem, to see this picture of heaven coming to earth in real, tangible ways. That's the vision. Do we have that? Is that our lens? Are we looking for that vision? You know, it's spoken in the book of Hebrews of Abraham that he was looking for a city, he was searching for a city, not built with human hands, a city with foundations. Are we looking for that? Or are we else looking for somebody to feed us, to serve us, to make us feel good about ourselves? What are we looking for? So we are connected to the calling and the inspiration of Abraham. And we are, in that regard, to realize that there are certain things in this world that are inconsistent with that city. Let's talk about what those things are real quick. Well, let's go to the parsha because I've lost it in my outline. So, in chapter 12, he says that you are to, English we say, utterly destroy. The Hebrew verb is that which means to cut loose from its moorings and set on its way, to uproot, to move out of your way, to get away from you. We shall do this to all the places, makomot, where the nations that you dispossess serve their gods. Well, that requires us. This is the first step. This is the first step of Demo Day. Demo Day requires us to tear down, to dismiss, to cut free of, to break the chains of all the places where the nations that we are dispossessing, the people, groups that we are going to change away from, diverge from, worship, serve their gods. And then it goes and says, on every mountain, on every valley, under every spreading tree. These are makomot, as plural, of feminine. Makomot are rallying places. Places where people rally, people get together, people aggregate, people associate. These are always going to be your hotspots. These are going to be your flashpoints, the places where people congregate. And the Holy One is telling Moshe, and Moshe is telling us that whenever you don't just take over the places where other people congregate, where other people assemble, where other people do their thing. Now, if you understand the way the kingdom works and the way the adversary, the ways of the adversary work, the ways of the anti-Messiah work, there are certain flashpoints. And in the books of the Maccabees, we see them developing very clearly around the Hanukkah season when we read those. And the first of those is generally there's the amphitheater. There's the place of entertainment, the entertainment venues. This is where the people of the culture serve their gods. There are concerts. There are sporting events. This is where the people of the cultures who know not the Holy One as their Father, they celebrate these things. They focus on these things. They build their ideals around their athletes and their entertainers and the writers and the directors and all the folks like that. And so there's the amphitheater. And so if you know the rest of this process from the book of Maccabees, I will encourage you to go back and look at it again. But the things that were the problem for the Greeks tried to impose upon the land of Israel, it started with the amphitheater and the gymnasium because they are tied together. They're all about focusing on the body and what man can do, humanity can do. And then there was the forum, the political forum, where we talk abstract ideas and concepts and things like that, the ideologies and philosophies. This was the forum. This is a place of congregation, a place of assembly, a place of interaction with humankind. This is that we can't just take over and think we're going to be okay in those scenarios. That is not us. That's not for us. We are to diverge from the forum. We are to diverge from the gymnasium. We are to diverge from the amphitheater. I don't mean you can't ever work out. What I'm saying is when you begin to focus on the ideals of living life around your body and getting it healthy and getting it beautiful or building up your muscles or whatever else it may be, or getting entertained in the entertainment venues, then you have adopted the gods of your culture. Same thing with regard to the forum. When you've adopted all these ideological ideas and concepts and abstract theories and political theories and this, that, and other forms of government you want to institute, when you do that, then you have taken into, you haven't destroyed, you haven't cut the moorings of, you have indulged, engaged in those things. Another thing is the secular university, the secular government-sponsored, government-inspired institution of learning. The idea that they will tell you what you should know. They will tell you they will define terms for you. They will define science for you. They will define medicine for you. They will define the ways in which that you can be controlled and manipulated by the rest of the world, and what you're supposed to get your head all around and be thinking about all the time, be feeling, be expressing. And so we have the forum, we have the gymnasium and the amphitheater, and we have the university. And then we have the local shrine system, the system that everything focuses upon our local little shrine, our local little priesthood. This is what the Kanani had under every spreading tree and on every high hill. They had little buildings, little shrines. And they focused their entire spiritual life, their entire intellectual life. Everything was built around those little gathering places. They had no idea of a house where you speak of the Torah of the Holy One as you rise up and when you lie down, when you walk by the way, and when you sit at your meals. They had no concept of that. It was all based upon meetings and programs and protocols and assigned times when we go to these particular meeting halls. Now, that was the system that we had to deal with. And he says, how does that relate to gods, you say? Well, what is a God? Elohim is the Hebrew word. And you know Elohim is the word that we use to describe the Creator, God. But it is a generic term. And the generic term, Hebrew term Elohim, means those things which are prioritized or authority, or considered to be authority. Those things which are prioritized or which are considered to be an authority for you. I see debates all the time about, are you going to follow science? There's your God. There's your God. Are you going to follow? See, because they redefine science any way they want to. And they say a scientist is what a scientist, someone who gets paid with his hand out all the time, wanting money from something, or wanting to get popularity and attention from the media. That's what that science is whatever they say it is. That's not what that is. Science is about how things work and about how we can make things work more smoothly. Anyway, so you see this issue of what our gods are not little images we put on walls somewhere or build little statues of. Those are just representations of our gods. Our gods are whatever we prioritize or whatever we consider to be authoritative. Now, if you see that as being the case, now you see why the forum and why the gymnasium and why the amphitheater and why the university are so dangerous, and why the little shrine, the little local shrine where we have all these fun activities, where we do these programs. That's why those become so dangerous to us and why they prevent us from doing what we're called to do. So he says you are to utterly break free of all the places where the nations serve their gods, on the high hills and on the hills under every green tree. And then it says, someone's trying to call me. Then it says you will utterly destroy, and you are to break down and uproot their altars. Their altars. There's going to be 5 things. The places was the first. The makamot, the makamot. And then there's these altars, the mizbeach. That place where they are willing to sacrifice, willing to give things up for, and attempt to accomplish certain things. What are you willing to give up? This is where your altar is. What are you willing to give up for a fleshly desire, for an appetite and urge? What are you willing to give up? What are you willing to sacrifice under the altar? These are the things that we must cut loose from. Thirdly, I should say, we got the place, we've got the altar, and then it says you are to break their pillars. And pillar is just a Hebrew word that means to stand up. What stands up in front of you? What is your projected ideal? What is the standard by which you measure? Maybe it's an abstract idea, like, I don't know, I won't mention names, I'll probably get people offended. Things that you could look at and think, oh, that's important, I need to do that. And I'll value people who do that, and I won't value people who don't do that. I'll just leave that alone where it may be. But that's the kind of thing we have to diverge from. We must learn to go down that wide, broad road that leads to destruction, and instead stay on the narrow road that stays focused on what really matters, who really matters. Our Father in heaven that really matters. What He says really matters. What His will is for our people. What His redemptive plan is for the king. That's what really matters. And so we have the pillars, and then we have the images, the shapes, the forms that they see as valuable, the patterns that they see as important and valuable. Those are the things that we get. And we are to take away their names, those things that have the attributes to them. He says, you are not to worship the Holy One your God with such things. I want us to understand that He wants us to be in close, intimate communion with Him at all times. He expects us as children to serve Him as a father, to do what the Father's instructions are. He expects that. He expects a close relationship where we talk to Him, where we visit with Him. But He doesn't want us to think that somehow we can do the things the pagans do to their gods, to Him. We can't follow the pagan ways, just claim them for Him, and say that's the way we're going to worship our God. We can't build these little local shrines and focus our entire lives around those shrines and their priesthoods and their programs and say that's going to worship our God. We can't build these great systems of philanthropy and government and organization and say that's how we're going to worship our God. No, those things are of the secular world. Those things are of the pagan world. We have to stay focused on what our job is, what our calling and our responsibility is. So he says, but you are to seek the place where the Holy One your God chooses out of all your tribes to put His name for His dwelling place. And there you are to go. All right. And 3 different times during this parsha, he is going to hit this theme. And he's never going to tell us where this place is. It's like the Holy One calling Abraham. Go out, diverge. Go out from all these things, your father's house and your land where you were born and all that. Go out from all these things to a place, a makom, a rallying place. I told you to tear down their rallying places, to cut loose from those, break free of those. Go to another one rallying place, where I will show you. He says to Abraham, go to a place I will show you. And so it is in here with Moshe. Moshe never says go to Jerusalem. Go to Mount Zion. Go to the hill of Mount Moriah. He doesn't ever say that. He says instead, go to the place where the Holy One will choose. It's the same place, obviously. But there's a sense of this delight. There's a sense of this curiosity, the sense of wonder that He wants to build in us first. You know, it's only the psalmist, David, who will really begin to put all this in proper perspective. Zion is the joy of the entire earth. You start reading some of David's psalms. If I forget you, O Jerusalem, may my tongue cling to the roof of my mouth. May my hand lose its cunning. The part of the psalmist begins to put language, put names, put titles, put actual physical ideas to this process. But the idea of the Holy One is, I have a place for you that's better than those community centers, better than those places where people congregate, better than the government systems and the forums, better than the amphitheaters and the entertainment venues, better than the gymnasium and the sports stadiums, better than any of those things. I have a better place for you. I want you to hunger for it. I just want to give you a hints of it, like a free kingdom of heaven scented society would have and would project. Do you have a vision for your connection to Jerusalem, to Zion, to Moriah? Do you have a connection to that place where Abraham met Melchizedek? Do you have a connection to that place where David purchased a threshing floor and where Solomon built a temple? Do you have a connection with the place where Abraham took Yitzhak at the call and the instruction of the Holy One, not knowing what he was going to do, and the Holy One said, on the mountain of the Holy One, he will be seen. He will provide, some may say it. Do you have a connection with that place? Is that connection real to you? Because you see, if it is, then you will stay on the road, on the narrow road leading to the destination. But if you do not, you know, I have a dear cousin whose father, my uncle, moved out from California, left before all the nonsense began to happen out there. My beloved friends in California, I feel for you. I know what you're going through. He left early, and he moved out to Midwest, to Oklahoma, and he found a little ranchette, and he bought it with his retirement money, and he put a big sign up on the front gate, the It'll Do Ranch. The It'll Do Ranch. Well, most of us, if we don't have the vision for the plan, for this dream, for the beauty of what the Holy One has in mind for us and in store for us, the Mount Gerizim kind of a concept of fruitfulness and beauty, the joy of the whole earth, the delight of the whole world, if we don't have that vision, then we will find an It'll Do Ranch somewhere. And we'll invest in our little It'll Do Ranch here in America or in South Africa or in the Australia or in New Zealand or in Israel, in the physical land that has not yet reached its potential. We'll say, well, it'll do. The old famous statement about I'm trying to remember how this went for the settlers who took the wagon trains, and they came to a certain place and said, couldn't go anymore. Guess I'll just stay here. Guess I'll just stay here. And I think we get to that stage in life where we settle for what we have now. We settle for what's around us. We settle and think this is as good as it's going to get. Oh, beloved, the Father's heart, your Father wants you to know it's not going to be like this. This is not the best you can do. This is not the best you can be. This is not the best the world has to offer. My creation is going to be redeemed and restored. And there will be fruitfulness, and there will be this place of rallying for all my children, and that will draw the rest of the world. Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Holy One, and He will teach us His ways, and we will walk in His paths. Well, this is that vision. He says, if you don't have this vision, you will perish. Your society will crumble. You will begin to dissolve. And people wonder, why in the world do you always talk about Jerusalem, Bill? I can't help it. My Father stuck this vision in my heart and this passion in my heart. And if I ever let it go, I know I'll die and I'll quit being an inspiration to you or anyone else. I'll think this'll do. I'll be satisfied to argue politics of America. I'll be satisfied to argue what's science and what's medicine here in America. I'll be tempted to argue all the things, who's right and who's wrong and what's fair and what's unfair, what's moral and what's immoral, what's just and unjust here in the state of America in 2021. And that is not why we're here, and that's not what we're called for. And we have a better plan, a bigger desiring for us and for our lives and for our families. So he's going to introduce this place, the rallying place, where the tribes will go up. and the nations will also ascend. The city set on a hill, a place of refuge, a light shining to the nations. This is the place we're going. This is what we're eternally connected to. This should be alive. We're basically glowing with its glow, resonating with its frequency, sounding with its sound, pulsing with its energy. This city of Jerusalem. This is why people don't understand why Israel is so important and why Jerusalem is so important. It is because it is the pulsing energy of heaven pulsing through one spot on earth that goes out through sound waves, shock waves into the rest of the world. Well, he's going to talk about that. I want to get back to one of the things I talked about, which is the fact that he is our Father. Since this is the hinge point, we'll use this as our kind of dropping off point. If he is your father and you are his child, and he feels about you the way Mason Belk felt about that child, times 100,000 million level about the baby that's just born. If this is the relationship you have with the creator of the universe, and this is how much he invests his life and his heart and his thoughts and his will in your life, then what does that mean to you? What does it mean to you that the creator of the universe is your father? What does it mean for the way in which you will draw your breath? The way in which you will face life? The way in which you will look at other people? You know, I used to really resent my sisters. I grew up in the household with them. They were older than me. They bullied me a little bit. At least I thought they did. In my mind, they did. They were always getting to do stuff I couldn't do. So I resented my older sisters. Till I got to about 12 or 13 years old. And I sat down with my mother and father and my sisters one day, and I sit there and I realized, wait a minute. Mom and Dad love both of you just as much as they love me. In their eyes, you're just as precious as I am. Maybe I need to treat you better. Maybe I need to be a little more respectful to you. Maybe if I understand that I thought I was the precious, the special one that needed to get all the attention and maybe not. Maybe you are valuable. And so this is the way I think, how do we look at other people? How do we look at other human beings? Not just our siblings. That should be the mind. How do we look at the rest of the world? The people we disagree with. I disagree with my sisters on everything. And they usually won because they were bigger than me. When I was little especially. And they seemed to always have it going their way. And they were wrong. Almost invariably. I still tell them that to their face. And I still do. I had to love them. I had to care for them. I had to at least treat them with a modicum of respect and realize that I don't get to rule them. I don't get to tell them what they should think. I don't get to tell them what they should feel. I don't get to tell them how I'm better than they are and how privileged they think they are because they're so and so and so and so. You see, if he's your father, but he's also their father. This is why I love what Yeshua did. When he taught us to pray, the disciples asked him, teach us, Master, how to pray. And the first thing we would say, my Father. He didn't teach them to say, my Father. He taught them to say, our Father. Not Avi, Avinu. Our Father. You are not just my Father, you're our Father. And because you're our Father, I got to think of everything. And it's going to go through things like forgiveness. Things like forgiving trespasses against those who trespass against us. That's why, because he's all of our Father. That makes more sense when you realize how this works. So how would it affect the way in which you evaluate and look at other people and treat other people and speak to other people? If he's their Father as well as your Father, will that change the way you do these things? Well, not if you're in the forum. And you're in the forum, the only thing that matters is the idea and the ideology and the philosophy. It doesn't matter. The people don't matter. The fact that they're here, all of his sons and daughters, doesn't matter. They're just objects in your way to not espouse your ideology, your whatever it may be. So this is important. Now, how will the fact that he is your father and you are his child and we are all his children, how will that impact the way in which you deal with challenges and relational problems? How will you deal with from a standpoint of vengeance and enforcing what's right in this particular situation? Or will you instead focus upon a father's vision of making wholeness and wellness in the family, of bringing redemption to bloodlines, redemption and restoration to creation in places? How will you look at places where you live? Are they just nasty pieces of ground, that the armpits of America or the armpits of Texas, or what? Are they ugly places? Do you say negative things about places where you go because of the way they are right now or the way you see them right now? Or do you realize that you have the ability to release something beautiful over them, to give a Gerizim vision in wherever it is, and so have a different perspective? These are the ways in which it should change everything, that he is our Father and that we are his children. It allows us to want the fruitfulness of all the earth, of all people, of all families, of all households. Well, he's going to also address certain issues. Part of the vision, part of the blueprint that he wants to show us is going to involve how we present ourselves to the world. Things that most of us would not appreciate being told by someone. How you should or should not wear your hair. How you should or should not eat. What you should consider ingestible food and what you shouldn't consider ingestible food. You say, what you should do as far as whether you should allow something to pierce your skin or whether you should have a permanent mark embedded upon your skin. Once you realize this has happened, once he realizes he's your father. You say, what right is it of his to tell me what I can do with my body, or how I should wear my hair, or how I should present myself to the world, or how I should dress, or how I should adorn my skin? What right does he have? Back to the central point. He is your father. He is the head of this household. He is the one who has the design and gives you life. He is the one who makes your life meaningful. He is the one who knows what's good for you, what's good for society, what's good for the creation, what's good for the family. He knows what's good, and he only wants what's good. So that's why he has the right to tell you what you should or should not eat. Not just the right, the responsibility. He has the responsibility to tell you what not to put in your bodies or what not to put on your bodies, what not to present as far, I have this thing that has happened to me. Every time now I walk in the city or go by a store with windows that reflect a little bit out, and you can see your reflection in the window. I look in that window, and just out of the corner of my eye, I see an image of my father. It's like, Dad. And then I look again, and it's not my father. It's me. I just happen to look like my father. I remember him at my age. I remember him then. I remember him a little bit younger, but also remember him then. And so we see, do we look like our father? Are we looking more and more like our father every day? Well, he's your father, so he wants you to look like him. He wants you to project the image of who he is to the world. That's why he doesn't want you to color it up, paint it up, pierce it up, twist it up, cover it up. He doesn't want you to do all that because he wants you to reflect honorably to the world who you are, where you came from, and what you have to offer to the world. It's not a matter of being being a prude or being, and he wants you to be the best you can be. And he has a sense of accomplishment in him that he made you pretty good. So you don't need to put anything else on your body or change your body or have some form of surgery or piercing to make you a better person or make you look better or make you more artistic, because that's an insult to your Father who made you the way he designed you to and put you together in your mother's womb. And therefore you're going to now change that and say, I'm not happy with the way you made me. I'm not happy with the way you told me to present myself to the world. You see, if he's the Father, this changes everything. Well, he's going to also talk to us about many other subject matters. See if I can get to any of them. It's about that time, but I want you to understand that basically what this parsha is and what the entire Raya dialogue that Moshe is introducing at 11:26 of Deuteronomy and going all the way through the chapter 30, the Raya, the behold, come up here and see what I see, get a capture of a vision for the kingdom of heaven, sin, and society discourse. Really, what he's really doing is the same thing Yeshua did in the Sermon on the Mount. The Sermon on the Mount really seems to be patterned, quite frankly, after this whole discourse. All the things he said, like, what does he say in the Sermon on the Mount? He says, let your light so shine before men. Why? That they may see and glorify your Father who is in heaven. This is about glorifying the Father, and Yeshua took this and went down the roads, down all the little pathways, just the same way Moses did. From that point forward, everything else was about this. You are here to glorify and bring honor to your Father. Don't be going down roads that take that opposite approach, the narrow road, the broad road that leads to destruction. And then I want you to remember what James said. This whole demolition day, demolition season that we go through to tear down and to separate ourselves from the things of the world, do you not know, Hebrew would be discern, understand, grasp. Do you not know that friendship with the world and its ways and its priorities is enmity with God? It's a declaration of war against your Father. Do you not know, discern, understand, and grasp that the friendship with the world is enmity with God? And whosoever, therefore, will be a friend of the world will become an enemy of God. This is the whole message of the Messiah and the prophets. This is the message of the kingdom. The gospel of the kingdom, as it's called, is that we must diverge. But we diverge for a reason, unto a purpose, with a mission. We diverge because this is our Father calling us and calling all of his other lost and estranged children to him. And unless we represent him appropriately, there will be no place for them to go. They'll just find more little local shrines to inhabit, more political forums to throw their arguments around in, more amphitheaters and gymnasiums to waste their money and their time trying to get body beautiful in and find idols and ideals in. More universities to teach things that aren't true, that aren't real, that are all based on weaponizing things like medicine and science and theology and philosophy. Weaponizing them to hurt other people and endanger other people and condemn other people for the fact that they aren't as good as we are, as smart as we are, as whatever as we are. That's the way the university system works now. And that's what people will find. They will have no other alternative unless we show them the pathway. This is why it's important, so critical, that we diverge. But without a vision, my people perish. Without the vision of this kingdom of heaven centered society and our part and our role in it, we all just devolve and design to go down into some pattern of the world, friendship with the world. listening to its voices. Speaking of which, was the final thing I'll talk about today. One of the blueprint pages that the Holy One has for this kingdom of heaven in society has to do with who we will listen to, who we will give our ear to. It's going to say, if there arise among you a prophet or a dreamer of dreams, and then the whole series of things in, I believe it's chapter 15 that deals with this, and he's basically going to come down to this particular place. You know what? Who holds your ear? He who you allow to have your ear controls your life. So who are you listening to? Now, he's going to say, you are to Shema, the voice of the Holy One. That's in the same chapter. That's how he's going to conclude this whole story. I'm trying to tell you this about false prophets. I'm trying to tell you this about dreamers of dreams, about how these things are so interesting, so fascinating. There's this curiosity that builds up within you because other people are saying this stuff. And you want to follow after all that. You want to trace after all that. So, but you forget the most important thing. You've got to Shema, the voice of the Holy One, your God. That's the test. All the other things are just tests, are just challenges, are just siren songs. Come back to the voice of the Holy One. And so as we get ready to conclude, before we go any further in this great discourse, the Kingdom of Heaven Centered Society discourse, we kind of have to make a decision. Who are we going to give our ears to? What sources are we going to listen to? What will we define as knowledge? And true, workable, usable sources of knowledge, of wisdom, of understanding, of counsel, of the fear of the Holy One, which is all we're talking about from Isaiah chapter 11 right now. It's also mentioned in chapter 26 of Deuteronomy. These are the things we're supposed to get. Knowledge, wisdom, understanding, the things that truly matter, the things that are true and real in this life. Where are we getting that information? Where are we what radio stations are we tuning into? What YouTube channels are we getting it from? Where are we trying to find the information we need, the revelation we need, the downloads we need? Here's a little test. If you could go back over the past week, for those of you who use the internet, if you could get a printout showing the number of minutes that you were on given websites, what would be at the top of the list of the number of minutes of the websites you've looked at? If you're turning on the television, what programming? What? I don't like to use the word news. I don't think that we have any anymore. On either side of the political spectrum, I don't mean to tell you there's one group that's better than another. There just is no news. What you see is not news. What you see is race baiting, class baiting, division-enhancing propaganda. So there is no better than other. But what of those sources, what are you getting? What are you listening to? What programs are you spending your time on? How much time of the past week did you spend on those processes? And what kind of conversations? Forum-like conversations, or gymnasium-type conversations, or entertainment venue-type conversations did you engage in? What was at the top of your conversation topic list? This week, this will tell you who's got your ear. This will tell us whether we're ready to move on in the Kingdom of Heaven Centered Society or not. You see, because sometimes we just have to cut them loose. Make a clean break. No more. I'm not going to dabble. I just want to watch this one program, this one video, this one YouTube, I just want to watch this one science guy or medicine guy or education guy or theologian. I want you to watch this one. Just dabble. Just put your right foot in. Put your right foot out. Don't be putting it back in there. And don't be shaking it all about. Because you see, you're just doing the hokey pokey with your thought process and with your time when you're... The creator of the universe is your Father. And you are his precious, beloved child who he sees amazing, unbelievable amounts of potential and giftedness in. You can be a light to the world, a salt to the earth. You can be a joy to the nations. You can be hope. You can be a picture of the New Jerusalem, and your life can be an image of what that looks like and how it will impact and change the world for good and bring redemption and restoration. But you got to let go of some stuff. You got to grab a hold of a real vision, a true vision, a vision bigger than your politicians could ever come up with. Bigger than your theologians could ever come up with. A vision that only the creator of the universe can birth in your soul and in your spirit and your heart. And so the words are going forth throughout the world, the kings of this world. Moshe's words are still there. Re'eh. Open your eyes. Tune in your ears. See, hear, and let's build this kingdom of heaven-centered society together. Shabbat shalom. We'll see you next week.